The deep black of space surrounded the exploration vessel Starbridge Discovery like an ocean of darkness. Captain Kevin Hart stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the star charts displayed on the large screens before him. He had been exploring the outer edges of known space for 3 years, searching for new worlds and resources for Earth's growing population. Kevin was a tall man with dark hair and tired eyes. Years of space travel had worn on him, but his determination never faded. He loved his work and loved being among the stars. His crew respected him because he was fair and always put their safety first. They trusted him with their lives, and he never took that trust for granted. On this particular morning, something strange happened. The ship's communication officer, a young woman named Rebecca Martinez, called Kevin to the command center. She looked worried and confused at the same time. Rebecca had worked on the Starbridge Discovery for 2 years and was one of the best officers on the ship. "Captain, you need to see this," Rebecca said, pointing at her screen. "I picked up a coded transmission about an hour ago. It was being broadcast from a distant station near the Kepler 442 system." Kevin leaned closer to look at the data. The transmission was broken and hard to understand, but certain words kept appearing again and again. The words were about war, attack, and human settlements. Kevin felt a chill run down his spine. He had a bad feeling about what he was reading. "Can you decode it?" Kevin asked Rebecca. "I already started, sir," Rebecca replied. "But it is difficult. The code is not like anything we have seen before. I think it might be from the Galactic Council." Kevin's heart sank. The Galactic Council was an ancient group of alien civilizations that had existed for millions of years. Humans knew of them but were not really part of their world. The Council kept humans at a distance and did not seem very interested in them. This made Kevin curious about why they would be sending such an urgent message. Over the next few hours, Rebecca and another officer named David Lopez worked hard to decode the transmission. Slowly, a terrible picture began to take shape. The message spoke of a dangerous alien force called the Valorian Empire. This empire had been attacking settlements and destroying entire colonies. The Council had received reports of these attacks and knew they were moving toward human-controlled space. But the most shocking part was this: the Galactic Council had decided not to warn humanity. The Council believed that humans were too young as a spacefaring species to matter in their grand plans. Some Council members even thought that letting humans face this threat alone would teach them a lesson about the dangers of space exploration. They wanted to see if humans would survive or if they would simply disappear. Kevin felt anger rising in his chest. How could these ancient beings be so cruel and careless? Thousands of human lives could be lost because of the Council's indifference. He immediately knew what he had to do. He had to send this warning back to Earth right away. He had to tell the human government and military about the danger coming toward them. Kevin called his communications team together and gave them the order to send an urgent message to Earth. He wanted them to use every powerful transmitter on the ship to make sure the signal reached home. The team worked quickly, preparing the message with all the information they had gathered. But then something terrible happened. Just as Rebecca was about to send the final transmission, all the screens on the bridge went dark. The ship's lights began to flicker and fade. Kevin heard alarms sounding throughout the vessel. Something had attacked them from outside. Kevin rushed to the window and saw a massive alien warship descending toward them through the darkness of space. "All hands to emergency stations," Kevin shouted. "This is not a drill." The Starbridge Discovery was not built as a military ship. It was designed for exploration and research. It had some basic defense systems, but nothing compared to what was attacking it. Kevin knew immediately that they were outgunned and outmatched. The alien warship fired powerful energy weapons at the Starbridge Discovery. The first blast hit the ship's side and tore through metal and machinery. The impact threw everyone on the bridge to the ground. Kevin felt pain shoot through his shoulder as he hit the wall hard. Alarms continued to scream all around him. "Evasive action," Kevin ordered, but he knew it was hopeless. The ship's engines were damaged from the first attack. They could not move fast enough to escape. Another blast came, and this time it hit the engine room. The Starbridge Discovery began to lose power. Kevin realized that his ship was going to be destroyed. He had only seconds to make a choice. He grabbed the data crystal that contained the decoded Council message and all the information about the Valorian threat. This information had to reach Earth somehow. It was the only warning humanity would receive. "Everyone to the escape pods," Kevin shouted to his crew. He helped Rebecca and David toward the emergency exit. The ship was shaking and falling apart around them. Metal pieces fell from the ceiling. Fires broke out in several corridors. Kevin managed to get most of his crew into the escape pods. The pods shot away from the dying ship, just as another massive blast tore the Starbridge Discovery apart. Kevin watched from his small escape pod as the ship that had been his home for 3 years exploded into pieces. The bright light of the explosion lit up the darkness of space like a terrible star. The escape pod systems were damaged, and Kevin was badly hurt. Blood ran down his face from a wound on his head. His right arm felt like it was broken. He tried to call the other escape pods to check if anyone else had made it out alive, but the communication system was not working well. Through the small window of his escape pod, Kevin saw something frightening. The alien warship was searching for the escape pods. It was moving slowly like a hunter looking for prey. Kevin had to hide. He saw a small moon nearby orbiting a dead planet. It was covered with rocks and mountains. He changed the course of his escape pod and aimed it toward the moon's surface. It was his only chance to survive. The escape pod landed hard on the rocky moon, and Kevin lost consciousness from the pain and shock. When he woke up hours later, he was alone on a cold, empty moon with very little supplies. His radio could not reach Earth. His ship was gone. Most of his crew was gone. But he still had the data crystal with the warning message. Somehow he had to find a way to get this information back to humanity. They had to know that danger was coming. They had to be ready. Kevin looked up at the black sky and saw distant stars. Somewhere out there, billions of humans on Earth had no idea what was about to happen to them. No one had warned them because the Galactic Council did not care if they lived or died. Kevin realized then that humanity was on its own. They would have to face this danger alone, without help from the ancient civilizations of the galaxy. The news of the attacks reached Earth like a bomb falling on a quiet city. On a regular Tuesday morning, people woke up to watch the news and saw footage of a destroyed human colony. The images were shocking and terrible. Bodies lay in the dust. Buildings that had taken years to construct were now just rubble. Fires burned everywhere. The colony on Kepler 442b, which had been home to 5,000 people, was gone. The first reaction from people around the world was shock and disbelief. This could not be real. Humans had always assumed they were safe in space. Sure, they had heard stories about alien civilizations far away, but these aliens seemed distant and not interested in humanity. Now something unknown had attacked human settlements without any warning. The attacks came like lightning striking from a clear sky. Emergency. Meetings were called in governments all across Earth. The United Nations held a special session where world leaders gathered to discuss what had happened. Fear spread through the population like fire. People asked questions that nobody could answer. Who had attacked them? Why did they attack? Would there be more attacks? Would Earth itself be attacked next? Commander Lisa Grant sat in a secure military facility deep underground. She watched the reports of the attacks on multiple screens. Her face was serious and hard. Lisa was a strong woman with short blonde hair and a sharp mind. She had been working for the Space Defense Program for 20 years. She knew more about space exploration and military strategy than almost anyone on Earth. Lisa remembered something strange from a few weeks ago. She had received some broken data from Captain Kevin Hart's ship, the Starbridge Discovery. The data was damaged and incomplete, so she had not reported it to her superiors. She did not want to seem foolish by claiming something serious based on broken information. But now, watching the attacks happen, Lisa realized that Kevin's message might have been a warning. Lisa felt guilty. Maybe if she had reported the data earlier, they could have prepared better. Maybe some lives could have been saved. She opened the files again and looked at the fragments of Kevin's message. It mentioned an alien force called the Valorian Empire. It mentioned that the Galactic Council had decided not to warn humanity. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in Lisa's mind. She immediately went to her commanding officer, General Thomas Brooks, and told him about the message from Kevin Hart. General Brooks was shocked and angry. How could an advanced alien civilization decide to leave humanity defenseless against a threat like this? General Brooks and Lisa both understood that humanity was facing something they had never faced before. They could not rely on anyone else. They had to face this danger alone. That night, Lisa was promoted to full commander and given control of Earth's newly assembled space defense fleet. This was both exciting and terrifying. She now had the power to make important decisions, but she also had the weight of billions of lives resting on her shoulders. She did not sleep that night. She spent it studying everything she could about the Valorian attacks and thinking about how to defend humanity. The ships that made up Earth's space defense fleet were not very impressive. Most of them were old mining vessels that had been converted for military purposes. Some were cargo ships that had been fitted with weapons. There were a few military cruisers, but they were outdated and slow. Humanity's technology was primitive compared to the Valorian Empire. This was a problem that Lisa had to solve somehow. Commander Lisa called a meeting with the best engineers, scientists, and military officers on Earth. She explained the situation clearly. They were facing an enemy with superior technology. They could not win by using traditional military tactics because the enemy was too strong. They had to think differently. They had to use their brains in ways that the Valorians would not expect. A brilliant engineer named Henry Vaughn raised his hand and spoke. Henry was a middle-aged man with glasses and a calm voice. He had spent his whole life designing and building things. Henry suggested that they study the attack patterns and the weapons that the Valorians had used. Maybe there was something in the way Valorian technology worked that could be used against them. Maybe they had weaknesses that nobody had discovered yet. Lisa approved this idea immediately. She sent a team of scientists to the destroyed colony on Kepler 4042b to collect pieces of Valorian weapons and technology. A young officer named Nathan Porter led this team. Nathan was brave and smart. He did not hesitate when he was given this dangerous mission. He knew that finding information about the enemy could help save lives. When Nathan's team arrived at the ruins of the colony, they saw destruction everywhere they looked. The ground was torn apart. The buildings were vaporized or crushed. Bodies had to be carefully treated with respect as they searched for technological remains. Nathan and his team worked carefully, collecting every piece of Valorian technology they could find. Back in the laboratories on Earth, Dr. Patricia Morrison began analyzing the Valorian technology. Patricia was a brilliant scientist with red hair and sharp eyes. She had studied physics and technology her whole life. As she examined the alien weapons, she noticed something interesting. The technology operated on specific electromagnetic frequencies. This meant that if humans could disrupt these frequencies, they might be able to disrupt the weapons and defenses of the Valorian Empire. Patricia worked day and night, barely stopping to eat or sleep. She wrote complicated formulas and tested theories. Slowly, she began to understand how the Valorian weapons worked. She discovered that their power systems had certain weaknesses. If humans could generate powerful electromagnetic pulses at exactly the right frequency, they could disable Valorian technology temporarily. This was not a perfect solution, but it was something. Commander Lisa brought Patricia and Henry together to discuss how to use this information. Henry had an idea. He wanted to design new defense systems using Earth technology, but with modifications based on what Patricia had learned. These systems would not be as powerful as Valorian technology, but they could be faster and more unpredictable. They could use the electromagnetic pulse technology Patricia had discovered. Over the next few weeks, engineers and scientists from all over Earth worked together on this project. They built modified weapon systems and installed them on the converted ships. They also built defensive stations that could generate electromagnetic pulses. The work was hard and there were many failures, but the team kept trying. Henry also had another idea. He wanted to build unmanned defense drones that could carry the electromagnetic pulse weapons. These drones would not need pilots, so humans would not be at risk. They could swarm the enemy and attack from many angles at once. This was a completely new way of fighting that the Valorians would not expect. Commander Lisa began organizing military training with all the pilots and soldiers. She knew that technology alone would not be enough. Humans also needed to be smart and brave. They needed to understand that they were not fighting for victory or glory. They were fighting for survival. They were fighting so that humans on Earth would continue to exist. News spread across Earth about humanity's preparation for war. People watched as military ships were prepared and launched into space. Some people were afraid. Some people were angry. But most people understood that humanity had no choice. The Valorians had attacked first. Now, humans had to defend themselves. Commander Lisa stood in her command center and looked at the star charts showing the positions of human colonies and military ships. She knew that the next battle would be crucial. It would show whether humans could survive against a superior enemy. She also knew something else that gave her hope. Humans were creative and stubborn. Humans did not give up easily. This might be their greatest advantage against the Valorians. In the darkness of space, humanity was beginning to prepare for the fight of its existence. Deep in the research laboratories of Mars, Dr. Patricia Morrison worked on something that would change everything. The electromagnetic pulse weapons were working better than anyone had expected, but Patricia wanted to understand more. She spent her days studying the alien communications that the human military had intercepted from Valorian ships. The more she studied, the more she discovered, and the discoveries were shocking. Patricia had been decoding alien transmissions for weeks. It was slow work because the Valorian language was complex and strange. But gradually patterns began to emerge. She saw references to coordinated attacks across multiple star systems. She saw orders from commanders about which human colonies to target first. But something else appeared in the transmissions that made Patricia feel cold inside. The messages mentioned something called the Galactic Council. The Valorians were discussing how the Council had given them certain information about human settlements. The Council had told the Valorians exactly where humans lived and how many people lived there. The Council had essentially drawn a map showing the Valorians where to find easy targets. Patricia could not believe what she was reading. She read the same messages over and over again to make sure she understood correctly. The Galactic Council, the ancient alien civilization that was supposed to be neutral and wise, had helped the Valorians attack humans. This was not just a failure to warn humanity. This was active betrayal. Patricia immediately contacted Commander Lisa Grant. She shared her findings with Lisa in a secure video call. Lisa's face grew darker and more angry as Patricia explained what the Council had done. Lisa knew that this information would cause huge problems when it became public. But humanity had to know the truth. Commander Lisa called an emergency meeting with the world leaders in the United Nations. She presented Patricia's findings to them. The reaction was explosive. World leaders shouted and argued. Some demanded immediate military action against the Galactic Council. Others wanted to break all communication with them. Everyone agreed on one thing, though. Humanity had been betrayed by the ancient beings they had trusted, but there was more to discover. Patricia continued her work, and she found something even more disturbing in the intercepted messages. Council members had been arguing about humanity's fate. Some council members thought that letting humans face the Valorians alone was a good idea. They believed it would teach humans a lesson about the dangers of space travel. They thought that if humans survived, they would be more humble and respectful to the council. Other council members had disagreed. They said that humans should be warned so that the council would not look cruel and uncaring, but the ones who wanted to let humans suffer won the argument. They believed that humanity did not deserve to be part of the galactic community. They thought humans were too young, too violent, and too unpredictable. The more Lisa learned about this betrayal, the more determined she became. She realized that the Galactic Council did not care about the lives of humans or any other young species. The Council only cared about maintaining their power and their perfect image of being wise and fair. In reality, they were neither of those things. They were selfish and cold. Meanwhile, something remarkable happened in space. Captain Kevin Hart, who had crashed on a lonely moon weeks earlier, was rescued by an unusual group of aliens. These aliens were not from the Galactic Council. They were refugees from worlds that the Valorians had conquered. The Valorian Empire had destroyed their homes and conquered their civilizations. These aliens had been fleeing from the Valorians for years. The leader of these refugees was a wise being named Thrax. Thrax was tall and had blue skin that glowed slightly in the dark. Thrax's people, the Eldrin, had once been very powerful. They had advanced technology and great knowledge. But they had become peaceful thousands of years ago and stopped building weapons. When the Valorians came to their world, Thrax's people could not fight back. They had to run and hide. Thrax's ship found Kevin's escape pod by accident. At first, they were afraid of him because they did not know if humans were friendly. But Kevin showed them the data crystal he had been carrying. Kevin explained everything about the Galactic Council and the Valorian threat. Thrax realized immediately that Kevin was important. Kevin had information that could help all the refugees. Thrax made a decision. He would help Kevin reach Earth. Thrax's ship was small and old, but it could travel through space. They would have to hide from Valorian patrol ships and the journey would be dangerous. But Thrax believed that helping humanity fight back against the Valorians was important. During the long journey back to Earth, Kevin and Thrax talked about many things. Thrax told Kevin about other alien civilizations that had also been betrayed by the Galactic Council. He told Kevin about the Tarathians, beings made of crystal that were brilliant at strategy and warfare. He told Kevin about the Xiphon, a hive-minded species that could solve complex problems very quickly. He told Kevin about dozens of other species that had suffered under the Valorian Empire. Kevin realized something important. Humanity was not alone in its suffering. There were many other species that had been abandoned by the Council just like humanity had been. Maybe all these species could work together to fight against the Valorians. Maybe humans could lead this group, because humans had something special. Humans had determination and the will to fight even when things seemed hopeless. Thrax also shared ancient Eldrin weapons technology with Kevin. The Eldrin had not used weapons in thousands of years, but they still remembered how to build them. Thrax explained that these weapons were incredibly powerful and used principles that even the advanced Valorians did not fully understand. Kevin knew that this technology could be valuable to humanity's defense. When Kevin's ship finally reached Earth, he was brought directly to Commander Lisa Grant. Kevin looked thin and tired after his journey, but his eyes were bright with determination. He told Lisa everything he had experienced. He told her about the refugees. He told her about the other species that wanted to fight against the Valorians. He told her about Thrax and the Eldrin weapons. Lisa listened carefully to everything Kevin said. She understood immediately that this changed everything. Humanity did not have to fight alone. There was a whole galaxy of species that had been abandoned by the Council. Just like humanity, if they worked together, they might be strong enough to defeat the Valorians. Lisa brought Kevin to meet with the world leaders again. Kevin told them his story and showed them the ancient Eldrin technology that Thrax had given him. The leaders realized that humanity had a choice now. They could work alone and probably lose, or they could reach out to the other species and try to build an alliance that could actually win. The decision was made quickly. Humanity would contact the refugee species. They would offer to work together against the Valorians. Commander Lisa began preparing messages to send out into space. These messages would reach the Tarathians, the Xiphon, the Eldrin, and any other species that had suffered at the hands of the Galactic Council or the Valorian Empire. Dr. Patricia Morrison also had news. She had found something in the Valorian communications that was very important. The Valorian Empire was much larger than anyone had realized. Only a small part of their military force had been sent to attack human settlements. This meant that the real Valorian military was somewhere else, probably preparing for bigger attacks. Commander Lisa now understood the true scale of the threat facing the galaxy. But she also understood something else. The moment when everything would change had arrived. Humanity was about to reach out to other species and create something that had never existed before in the galaxy. They would create an alliance of the abandoned and the desperate. They would fight back against the Valorians together. They would show the Galactic Council that they had made a terrible mistake by underestimating humanity. The first meeting between humans and the allied alien species took place on a neutral space station that orbited a small planet near the edge of known space. Commander Lisa Grant stood in the conference room and looked at the beings seated around the large table. She had studied information about each species, but seeing them in person was different and amazing. Sitting across from Lisa was a delegation of Tarathians. They were made entirely of crystal that sparkled and glowed in the light. Their bodies were geometrical and perfect. They communicated through patterns of light that shifted across their crystal surfaces. Despite their strange appearance, their minds were sharp and strategic. A Tarathian named Crystallis was their leader. Crystallis had chosen to wear a humanoid shape, just to make communication easier with the other species. Next to the Tarathians sat representatives of the Xiphon collective. The Xiphon were different from any other species Lisa had ever seen. They were connected to each other mentally, like a single organism divided into many bodies. Each Xiphon looked like a combination of insect and machine. They had multiple arms and glowing eyes. They did not speak words like other species. Instead, they communicated through telepathic pulses that all members of the collective received at the same time. Their leader was called Unity, which was a title rather than a name. The Eldrin delegation was led by Thrax, the being who had rescued Captain Kevin Hart. There were 3 other Eldrin with Thrax. They all had similar blue skin and tall frames. The Eldrin spoke in a language that was ancient and beautiful. They used few words but said much with their silence. Thrax had brought with him examples of the ancient weapons technology that the Eldrin had once used thousands of years ago. There were also representatives from 3 other species. The Rakalan were a race of beings with red skin and strong muscles. They had been enslaved by the Valorians for 50 years before escaping. The Kessian were small, furry creatures that were extremely intelligent and quick. They had lost their entire home planet to Valorian conquest. The Threnodi were tall and thin beings with excellent hearing and the ability to sense danger from great distances. They had been refugees for many years before meeting other species who were also fleeing the Valorians. Commander Lisa stood up and addressed the group. She spoke clearly and honestly. She told them that humanity understood what it meant to be abandoned and left defenseless. She told them that humans had also suffered at the hands of beings who thought they were superior. But she also told them something else. She told them that humans had hope and determination. Humans believed they could win if they worked together. Crystallis made patterns of light across his body as he responded. The Terathian language was translated by a computer system so that everyone could understand. Crystallis said that the Terathians had studied the Valorians for many years. The Terathians believed that the Valorians were strong but not invincible. The Valorians were arrogant and believed they could never lose. This arrogance could be used against them if the allied species fought in unexpected ways. Unity, the leader of the Xiphon, sent out a telepathic pulse that was translated into words. The Xiphon said that they had studied the Valorian computer systems. The Xiphon collective believed they could break into Valorian encrypted communications and disrupt their command systems. This would make it harder for the Valorians to coordinate their attacks and defend their positions. Thrax spoke in his ancient language, and the computer translated his words. Thrax explained that the Eldrin had weapons from an earlier age when they were warlike. These weapons used principles that the Valorians did not expect. The Eldrin believed these weapons could surprise the Valorians and give the Alliance an advantage. Thrax also offered the Eldrin's knowledge of the galaxy. The Eldrin had traveled to many worlds and understood the geography of space better than most species. Lisa nodded and listened to each delegation. She was beginning to see how all these different abilities could be combined. The Terathians could plan strategy. The Xiphon could handle technology and communications. The Eldrin could provide weapons and knowledge. The other species each had their own skills and strengths. Humans brought something different to the group. Humans brought creativity and the ability to do things that were not planned or expected. Over the next several hours, the delegations discussed their strengths and weaknesses. They looked at star charts showing where Valorian forces were located. They studied reports of previous Valorian attacks. Slowly, a plan began to form. It was a risky plan, but it was the best chance they had. The plan was to attack multiple Valorian positions at the same time. This would force the Valorians to spread their forces thin. The Xiphon would disrupt Valorian communications, so that the different Valorian forces could not talk to each other or receive orders. The Terathians would coordinate the strategy of the different allied groups. The Eldrin weapons would be used at key moments to destroy Valorian ships and fortresses. Humans would pilot the fighter ships and the ground forces. Humans would do the dangerous work that required courage and quick thinking. Commander Lisa assigned Captain Henry Vaughn to work with the Terathians. Henry would help design hybrid weapon systems that combined human engineering with Terathian strategic thinking. Henry was excited about this opportunity. He had been designing defensive systems, but now he could work on something more advanced. The systems that Henry and the Terathians created would be faster and more flexible than anything either species could make alone. Dr. Patricia Morrison was assigned to work directly with the Xiphon collective. Patricia would help the Xiphon understand human technology and help them break into Valorian computer systems. The Xiphon were fascinated by Patricia's way of thinking. Humans solved problems differently than other species. Humans sometimes broke rules and used unconventional methods. The Xiphon realized that this human way of thinking could help them find weaknesses in Valorian defenses. Captain Nathan Porter was given command of a strike force that would include soldiers from all the allied species. Nathan would lead humans, Rakalan warriors, Kessian scouts, and Threnodi sentries. Working together, these different soldiers learned from each other. The Rokalon taught humans how to be stronger and more fierce in combat. The Kessian showed humans how to move quickly and silently. The Threnodi taught humans how to sense danger before it arrived, but there was a challenge that the Alliance had to overcome. The different species did not fully trust each other yet. They had all been running and hiding for a long time. They had been betrayed by the Galactic Council. Some of them had even fought against each other in the past. Building trust between these species would take time and effort. Thrax understood this problem. He called Commander Lisa to meet with him privately. Thrax said that trust was built through shared danger and shared victory. If the Alliance fought together and won battles together, they would become true partners. Thrax suggested that they should start with a small battle against a Valorian outpost. This battle would be difficult but not impossible to win. If they succeeded, it would show all the species that they could work together effectively. Lisa agreed with Thrax's plan. She sent messages to all the Allied commanders. They would attack a Valorian military outpost located on a distant moon. The outpost was not heavily defended because the Valorians did not believe any species would dare to attack them. This made it a perfect target for the first battle of the Alliance. As the Allied forces prepared for battle, something remarkable happened. Soldiers from different species began to become friends. A human named Marcus became friends with a Rokalon named Kor. They shared stories about their homes and their families. A Kessian scout named Pip taught a human soldier how to move without making noise. A Threnodi warrior named Sentinel showed humans how to meditate and sense danger before it came. Commander Lisa watched this happening, and she felt hope in her heart. The Alliance was not just a military union. It was becoming something deeper. It was becoming a real partnership between different species who had been abandoned by the universe. Together they were stronger than they had ever been apart. The day of the first battle arrived. Hundreds of ships from different species gathered in space near the Valorian outpost. The Xiphon were already working to disrupt Valorian communications. The Terathians had calculated the best attack patterns. The Eldrin weapons were charged and ready. The human pilots waited in their fighter ships, feeling nervous but determined. Commander Lisa sent the final order. The Allied forces attacked the Valorian outpost from all directions at the same time. The Valorians were shocked and confused. They had never faced an attack like this before. They had never faced an alliance of different species working together. The battle was fierce and violent, but slowly the Valorian defenses began to break down. After several hours of fighting, the Valorian forces retreated, leaving the outpost destroyed but not destroyed completely. The Alliance had won their first battle together. The final battle would be the largest military operation in galactic history. The target was Krasthos Prime, the main stronghold of the Valorian Empire. This planet had been the center of Valorian power for thousands of years. Its defenses were the strongest in the entire empire. Massive shield generators protected the planet from orbital attacks. The Valorian fleet in orbit around Krasthos Prime consisted of over 100 warships, including several massive battlecruisers. Landing troops on the surface would be nearly impossible, but the Alliance had grown strong. Over the past 3 months, humans and their alien partners had won 17 battles together. Each victory made them more confident and more skilled at working as a team. They had learned how to use each species' unique abilities to create strategies that the Valorians could not predict or defend against. The time had come to strike at the heart of the enemy. Commander Lisa Grant stood in the command center of the flagship called the Nexus Dawn. This ship had been built by humans and Terathians working together. It was faster than Valorian ships and more powerful than anything humanity had previously created. Around the Nexus Dawn, hundreds of ships from all the allied species gathered in space. There were human warships with advanced defensive systems. There were Terathian crystalline vessels that could split apart and reform. There were Xiphon collective ships that moved with perfect coordination. There were ancient Eldrin warships that had been awakened from storage for the first time in millennia. Captain Kevin Hart stood next to Commander Lisa. He had fully recovered from his injuries and had become a skilled military commander. Kevin looked at the screens showing the Valorian defenses around Krasthos Prime. He knew this battle would determine the fate of the entire alliance. If they won, the Valorians would be forced to surrender and the galaxy would be free from their tyranny. If they lost, the alliance would be destroyed and the Valorian Empire would continue to grow stronger. Lisa gave the signal to begin the attack. Thousands of fighter ships launched from the Allied vessels and moved toward the Valorian fleet. Human pilots flew alongside Rakalan warriors and combat ships. Kessian pilots used their incredible speed to maneuver around Valorian defenses. Threnody warriors called out warnings to their allies using their ability to sense danger. The sky around Krastos Prime filled with the light of laser weapons and energy blasts. The battle was chaos and confusion at first. Valorian ships fired massive weapons that destroyed some of the Allied vessels. But for every Allied ship destroyed, the Valorians lost 2 or 3 ships. The Xiphon Collective was disrupting the Valorian communication network, making it impossible for Valorian commanders to coordinate their defenses. Without communication, the Valorian fleet was like a body without a brain. Dr. Patricia Morrison was working in the communications center of the Nexus Dawn. She monitored the Xiphon's progress as they hacked deeper into the Valorian computer systems. Patricia sent tactical information to the different Allied commanders. She told them where Valorian ships were weakest and where they should focus their attacks. Patricia's human creativity combined with Xiphon computational power created a perfect system for understanding and using military information. Captain Henry Vaughn was piloting one of the new hybrid fighter ships. The ship combined human engineering with Terathian design principles. It could move faster and turn sharper than anything Henry had ever flown before. Henry targeted a Valorian destroyer and unleashed a barrage of electromagnetic pulse weapons combined with traditional laser attacks. The combination overloaded the Valorian ship's systems, and it exploded in a bright flash of light. In space near Krastos Prime, the ancient Eldrin weapons were being used for the first time in thousands of years. These weapons operated on principles that the Valorians did not understand. They could not be blocked by normal shield generators. One Eldrin weapon fired at a massive Valorian battlecruiser and tore through its shields like paper. The battlecruiser's armor was penetrated and the ship began to fall toward Krastos Prime. Captain Nathan Porter led the ground invasion forces. Human soldiers, Rakalan warriors, and Kessian scouts landed on the surface of Krastos Prime in armored transport ships. They faced waves of Valorian troops, but the Allied forces fought with incredible courage and skill. The Rakalan soldiers were strong and fierce in hand-to-hand combat. The Kessian scouts found paths through the Valorian defenses that others could not see. The human soldiers were creative and quick-thinking, adapting their tactics to each new challenge. Nathan fought his way toward the main Valorian command center. He wanted to capture or destroy the central control system that coordinated all Valorian military operations. Nathan's team faced heavy resistance, but they kept moving forward. They used teamwork and trust in each other to overcome every obstacle. A Threnody warrior named Sentinel protected Nathan from a Valorian soldier with a plasma weapon. In return, Nathan saved Sentinel's life by spotting an enemy ambush before it could happen. In the orbital battle, the tide was turning in favor of the Alliance. The Valorian fleet was being pushed back toward the planet. More and more Valorian ships were being destroyed or disabled. The Valorians, who had been so arrogant and confident just hours before, were beginning to understand something new. They were losing. For the first time in their entire history, the Valorian Empire was losing a battle. The Valorian commander, a being named Vextal, could not believe what was happening. Vextal had conquered hundreds of worlds. He had never faced an opponent that he could not defeat. But this alliance of species that should have been easy to destroy was proving to be incredibly dangerous and unpredictable. Vextal realized that the underestimation of these species might cost him everything. Nathan Porter and his team finally reached the main command center deep beneath the surface of Krastos Prime. The facility was protected by the most advanced security systems that Valorian technology could create, but Dr. Patricia Morrison, connected to the Xiphon Collective, had already broken most of these security systems from orbit. When Nathan's team arrived, the security doors opened automatically. Nathan led his soldiers into the command center. They faced the final Valorian defenders, elite soldiers who fought with desperate courage. But Nathan's team fought back with equal intensity. A human soldier named Maria and a Rakalan warrior named Kor fought side by side, protecting each other and fighting their enemies together. The Kessian scouts used their speed and intelligence to outmaneuver the Valorian soldiers. After a fierce battle, the Valorians surrendered. The main command center was in Allied hands. Nathan transmitted the news back to Commander Lisa. The Valorian military command had been destroyed. The Valorian commander, Vextal, was captured alive. Without their leader and their command center, the Valorian fleet began to fall into chaos. Ship captains no longer received orders. Soldiers on the ground no longer knew what to do. The Valorian Empire, which had seemed so strong and invincible just hours before, was crumbling. Commander Lisa made a final broadcast to all Valorian forces. She offered them a choice. They could surrender immediately and lay down their weapons, or they could continue fighting and be completely destroyed. She told them that the age of conquest was over. The age of the Valorian Empire had ended. For a long moment, there was silence. Then slowly, Valorian ships began to stop fighting. Valorian soldiers began to surrender. One by one, the weapons fell silent. The battle was over. The Alliance had won. Commander Lisa stood on the observation deck of the Nexus Dawn and looked out at the Allied fleet. Hundreds of ships from different species hovered in space around the defeated Valorian world. Humans, Terathians, Xiphon, Eldrin, Rakalon, Kessian, and Threnody sailors and soldiers moved through the corridors in peaceful cooperation. They had fought together, bled together, and won together. Captain Kevin Hart sent a message through the communication system. After months of being unable to reach Earth, Kevin was finally able to send a message home. He told the people of Earth about the victory. He told them about the alliance that humans had created with other species. He told them about the bravery of humans who had fought alongside aliens to save the galaxy. Most importantly, he told them that the age of human insignificance was over. Humanity had proved itself to the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, the Alliance met to discuss what would happen next. The Galactic Council, which had betrayed humanity and many other species, was reformed completely. Humans, Terathians, and other species now held positions of power in the Council. The old order of the galaxy had been destroyed, and a new order was being built. Commander Lisa Grant and Captain Kevin Hart stood together on a balcony overlooking a new space station that was being constructed. This station would serve as the headquarters of the new galactic government. Around them, workers from different species were building a future together. They were constructing something that had never existed before in the galaxy. They were building a true community of different civilizations working together in peace and cooperation. Lisa turned to Kevin and smiled. "We were underestimated," she said. "Everyone thought we were too weak to matter. Everyone thought we would be destroyed, but we survived. We fought, we won, and now everything will be different." Kevin nodded and looked out. 6 months after the defeat of the Valorian Empire, the galaxy was changing in ways that nobody had predicted. The new Galactic Council met for the first time with representatives from species that had never had a voice before. The meeting took place on a neutral space station that orbited a peaceful star system. The station had been renamed the Platform of Unity, and it was designed to be fair and welcoming to all species. Commander Lisa Grant sat at the large circular table that had been built for this council. On her right sat Crystallis, the leader of the Terathians. On her left sat Unity, the representative of the Xiphon Collective. Around the table sat leaders from the Eldrin, Rakalon, Kessian, Threnody, and dozens of other species. Even representatives from some Valorian colonies that had rebelled against their empire were now part of the council. The old way of doing things in the galaxy was completely gone, but there were many difficult problems to solve. The Valorian Empire still existed, even though their military had been defeated. Entire regions of space were controlled by Valorian governors who refused to accept the new order. There were also questions about what should happen to the Galactic Council members who had betrayed humanity and other species. Should they be punished? Should they be forgiven? Different species had different ideas about justice and mercy. Captain Kevin Hart had been given the responsibility of leading the Truth Commission. This commission would investigate what the old Galactic Council had done. They would listen to stories from species that had been wronged. They would examine evidence of betrayal and cruelty. Kevin did not want this job. He knew it would be difficult and painful, but he also knew that healing the wounds of the past was necessary for building a better future. The Truth Commission held its first public hearing on the platform of Unity. Survivors of destroyed colonies came to tell their stories. A human woman named Sophie told the commission how her entire family had been killed in the attack on a distant colony. Sophie had escaped by hiding in an underground bunker. She spoke about how the Galactic Council had known about the attack and had done nothing to warn her people. Sophie's voice shook as she spoke, but her words were clear and powerful. An Eldrin elder named Thessia also testified. Thessia had lived for over 500 years. She told the commission about how the Eldrin had asked the Galactic Council for help when the Valorians first attacked their world. The Council had refused to help. The Council had said that the Eldrin problem was an internal matter for the Eldrin to solve. But the Eldrin did not want to be warlike anymore. They had given up weapons thousands of years earlier. They could not defend themselves against the Valorians without help. After each story, the commission would ask questions. Kevin asked about specific dates and decisions. Dr. Patricia Morrison, who was also part of the commission, asked about the political reasons behind the council's choices. Other members of the commission, from different alien species, added their own questions based on their understanding of justice and fairness. The old Galactic Council members were brought to the Truth Commission to answer for their actions. They came before the public and gave their explanations. Some of them said they had made mistakes. Some said they were following the rules of non-interference that had governed the Council for millions of years. Some tried to defend their actions by saying they thought they were doing the right thing, but no explanation seemed to satisfy the people who had suffered. One old council member named Sovereign Prime spoke to the commission with a quiet voice. Sovereign Prime had lived for 10,000 years. Sovereign Prime said that the council had become too comfortable and too distant from the species they governed. The council had forgotten what it meant to suffer and to be afraid. Sovereign Prime admitted that the council had made terrible mistakes. He said that the council had believed that other species were not important enough to save. Captain Henry Vaughn was working on a different kind of project. He was designing and building new cities on worlds that had been destroyed by the Valorians. These cities would be built by workers from multiple species. A city on the planet Tertian would have sections designed by humans for human living, but also sections designed for Terathians, Xiphon, and other species. The cities would be places where different civilizations could live side by side and learn from each other. Henry brought together the best architects and engineers from every species in the Alliance. They studied how different species lived and what kind of environments they needed to be healthy and happy. They learned that some species needed lots of light while others preferred darkness. Some species needed water nearby, while others needed dry climates. Some species wanted large open spaces while others wanted compact, efficient designs. The new cities that Henry designed were beautiful and complex. They were like works of art that celebrated the diversity of the galaxy. When workers from different species built these cities together, they created more than just buildings. They created places where peace could grow and friendships could develop. A human construction worker named Marcus and a Rakalon engineer named Kor worked together every day. They became the best of friends and taught their co-workers how to appreciate each other's strengths and abilities. Dr. Patricia Morrison was working on a project to preserve the knowledge and history of species that had been nearly destroyed by the Valorians. Some species had lost so many people that their entire culture and history was at risk of disappearing forever. Patricia created a massive digital archive that would store the languages, arts, music, stories, and scientific knowledge of every species in the galaxy. This archive would ensure that no culture would ever be completely lost again. Patricia worked with scholars from every species to collect and organize this information. A Cassian historian named Swift helped Patricia understand how to categorize different types of knowledge. The Eldrin brought ancient texts that had not been read in thousands of years. Humans contributed modern technology that could store massive amounts of information. Together, they created something that was much greater than any single species could have created alone. Captain Nathan Porter was training the new galactic military. This military would be different from the old one. Instead of one species dominating all the others, the new military would have soldiers from every species working as equals. Nathan created training programs where humans learned from Rakalon warriors how to fight with strength and courage. Humans taught Cassian scouts new techniques for moving quickly and silently. Threnodi warriors shared their ability to sense danger with all the other soldiers. Nathan believed that a military made up of different species was stronger than one made up of a single species. Different species thought differently and solved problems differently. A human soldier might solve a problem with creativity and unconventional thinking. A Terathian soldier would approach the same problem through careful calculation and strategy. A Xiphon soldier would use collective intelligence and vast computational abilities. Together, these different approaches created solutions that none of them could have found alone. But life on Earth was also changing dramatically. Humans had always believed they were alone in the universe. Now they knew the truth. Humans knew that there was a whole galaxy of different civilizations. News of humanity's victory in the war against the Valorians had spread across Earth. Some people celebrated and felt proud of humanity. Some people felt afraid of what contact with alien civilizations might mean. Some people wanted to travel to space and see these new worlds for themselves. A young human named James decided to leave Earth and travel to the platform of Unity. James wanted to see the alien species that had become humanity's allies. When James arrived at the station, he was amazed by what he saw. He saw beings made of crystal and beings that were hive minds. He saw tall beings and small beings. Some had many arms and some had none. At first, James was frightened by all the strangeness. But gradually, he began to see these aliens not as strange creatures, but as individuals with their own personalities and their own stories. James met a young Tarathian named Radiance. Radiance had also come to the platform of Unity to learn about other species. Radiance and James became friends. They spent time together learning about each other's homes and cultures. James told Radiance about Earth's mountains and oceans and forests. Radiance told James about the crystal caves of Taraxis Prime, where Tarathians had their greatest cities. Through their friendship, James and Radiance showed that the barriers between species could be broken down through simple human connection. Commander Lisa Grant watched all of these changes happening. She saw new cities being built. She saw warriors from different species training together. She saw the Truth Commission working to heal the wounds of the past. She saw friendships forming between members of different species. Lisa realized that something remarkable was happening in the galaxy. The galaxy was learning that cooperation and diversity made it stronger than it had ever been before. One day, Lisa received a visitor in her office. It was Thrax, the Eldrin being who had rescued Kevin Hart and started the whole alliance process. Thrax was very old now, even for an Eldrin. His blue skin had faded to a pale gray color. Thrax told Lisa that he was proud of what humanity had accomplished.